Our global affairs analyst Calvin Dark joins us on the news for more on this. Now, how will you describe the man, John Lewis?
Well, I would describe him, as heroic. I really think that as they've been calling the conscience of the Congress, is really, really appropriate. But when I, heard the sad news, I remembered one of the things that he always said that inspired me, and that is that we should be looking to get into good trouble, necessary trouble. And so that's what I'm thinking about this morning as I reflect on his life and then what we can do to honor it going forward.
Well, as the pioneer of the civil rights movement, how would you describe his impact?
Well, I think that just from a historical point of view, we're looking at he was the last living person who spoke at the March on Washington. So from an historic point of view, that is something that we should all honor. But I think what he would say, and I think what a lot of us are saying now, is that what his role was and his memory is not historic, it's now. I think that the protest after the death of George Floyd and others that underscored how we still have so much to fix in this country when it comes to systemic racism. I think that the work of John Lewis isn't just in the history books, but it's in today's newspapers, and the battle is not over.
Well, world leaders have begun sending condolences, of course, and speaking about the life and times of John Lewis. Now, from what I have here, Emmanuel Macron, the French president, says a lifetime of struggle for civil rights, a lifetime of getting into good trouble, of fighting for a world that is more just, a true hero indeed, because of you, John. Of course, former President of the United States, Barack Obama, also joined in paying tributes to this man. How will America, what will America remember him for?
Well, I think they will remember him for the example that he set. And I'll tell you, last night when I heard the news, the quote that kind of came to my mind was the John F. Kennedy quote, where he said, "We do these things not because they're easy, but because they are hard." And I just remember seeing the pictures of him literally being beaten and arrested. And I was just kind of overwhelmed with the thought of being thankful that he did those things that were hard. And it just reminded me of my opportunities and my obligations to try to follow in that. Now, one of the things that I want to say about remembering him now is here's what I hope. Of course, there will be many symbolic things with the flags at our staff, with the memorial tributes that are coming in, the service. I'm sure they will be fantastic and grand, and he deserves it, and we should do it. But those should be icing on the cake. The way that we should really honor Congressman John Lewis is by voting. And then once we voted, help other people to vote, help people to be motivated to vote, help people who want to vote, but because of lawmakers at the local, state, national level that are standing in the way of them voting. I think that's the best way that we can honor him. And just one more point on the honorifics that are going around in the statements. I think everybody should judge everybody's statement of honor with what they are doing for the things that he fought for. So if you're going to talk about his fight for civil rights and voting rights and standing up for racial equality, make sure that your actions, and U.S. policymakers, I'm looking at you, make sure your actions are in line with that. And if they're not, get that straight, then issue a statement.
He was re-elected into office 16 times between the years 1988 to 2018. How can leaders learn from his life? Because for someone to get re-elected into office that long and that number of times, it means that his people actually trust him. So leaders all around the world, both old and up-and-coming leaders, what can they learn about from his life at this time?
Well, I think they can learn about dedication and purpose. One of the things that kind of hit me when you were talking about his political history is I said, wow, he never took a moment to retire, which I think in his case is just symbolic of the fact that the race and the fight isn't over. So I think that seeing that dedication, he was 80 years old. I think that's what we can learn from, to see in each of our individual lives and in our purposes, how we can do that same thing of never fighting until it's done.
Well, Calvin Dark, thank you so much for talking to us about this. Thank you.